Switching gears, looking at the grade end of things and some of the quality aspects. Again, our database is starting to get fairly big now. So this is the percent of time that we achieve the better grade with each of these products, again in comparison to the untreated. So, with the flag leaf treatments, we're kind of hovering around in that, on average about 10% of the time we're getting a better grade with the flag leaf products. Definitely doing a lot better with the head timings with Folicure and Prezero. Kind of 1 in 4 times it seems like we're getting a better grade. Now, I wanted to look at that a little bit more because I had originally kind of thought those numbers would be a little bit higher. So trying to find out a little bit more with regards to where we're seeing some of those grade improvements, right? And when I broke it out, again, looking at the different provinces, there was a very interesting trend that developed here. And if I look at, say, for example, with regards to Alberta, in comparison, these products to the untreated, we're not seeing as much of a grade improvement in Alberta. Saskatchewan's kind of, they get some on the flag leaf, they get a little bit more on the head timings. And then if you look at us, for myself, being from Manitoba, the numbers just creep up a little bit more. And especially if you look at these head timings in Manitoba, with Prezero, for example, 42% of the time we're getting a bump in grade in Manitoba. Stands to reason, more fusarium pressure in Manitoba has traditionally been the heart of fusarium country, right? But it's a very interesting trend. So you see that basically the eastern side of the prairies, if we want to talk about these products specifically looking at grade improvement, we have a better chance of doing that in the eastern side of the prairies than for the guys in Alberta. Saskatchewan, you're kind of hanging out in the middle here. When we looked at the bushel weight end of things, again, looking at these products compared to the untreated, very similar story to what we were seeing in barley. We're seeing that the flag leaf treatments are giving us a good opportunity to increase the pounds per bushel versus the untreated. And same kind of trend that we're seeing where the head timing products like Folicure and especially Prezero, that's where we're seeing kind of the biggest opportunity with regards to increasing bushel weights. And then if we extrapolate that out a little bit further to look at the times where we wanted to try and gain those 2 pounds per bushel, the numbers drop accordingly, but we're still seeing that there still is opportunity with these products out there to try and gain those big bushel weights. Interestingly enough, when I looked at this and tried to dive down into the data a little bit more, and I haven't got it up in here, you guys will have it in your book. When I looked at it across the prairies in terms of where we're seeing some of those bushel weight gains, it was exactly the opposite versus what we were seeing with grade. For us in Manitoba, the 3 Folicure treatments at flag leaf and at head timing, we weren't seeing any bushel weight gains. If we wanted to see a bushel weight gain in Manitoba, it was with Prezero. But for the guys in Alberta, it didn't matter which treatment or which timing, they were seeing bushel weight gains right across the board. And Saskatchewan kind of hanging out in the middle. So if we want grade improvement, we go to Manitoba for the results. If we want bushel weight improvement, we go to Alberta, and then they just kind of flip-flop. So it was a really interesting trend that we were kind of seeing, specifically with regards to the quality end of things. Also wanted to keep an eye on protein. I've heard numerous different theories with regards to fungicide use and the effect on protein content over the last number of years. One theory being you have a healthier plant, allows more nitrogen to come into the head, therefore your protein content should go up. I've heard other theories to the otherwise. When I look at our database, 67 trials dating back to 2009, we haven't seen any real effect on protein. There's some trials where we see it pop up a little bit, and then 2 days later we'll get a trial where it pops down a little bit. It's kind of a wash, and we're not really seeing this have any effect at all with regards to the protein content of the crop in the end. So sorry, nothing there. Now, what about the sequential treatment, the doing a flag leaf treatment and then following up with a head treatment after that? We've looked at this again since 2009, in 4 years now, and we started to look at this use pattern because there was a lot of, commercially wise out in the prairies, this trend is really starting to appear. To the point for us in Manitoba, guys doing that flag leaf and then following up the head is starting to become a very, very common practice. So we wanted to have a look at it, see what kind of results we can get. 32 trials over the last 5 years, and if you look over here on the right, we're seeing it's on average about a bushel better than just a Prezero alone at head timing treatment. When I separated the numbers out last year, I think it worked out to about a 1.3, 1.4 bushel per acre advantage with the sequential. So there is an advantage there. It's not a great one. And when I looked into the data a little bit, and I think there's a little bit of a breakdown in your book as well too, we are seeing that it is there. On an average sense, it seems to be very much a break even. We're gaining that extra bushel and a bit sometimes on average, but when you factor in the cost of your flag leaf product plus application, it's kind of a wash. So then you sit there and go, so why are these guys doing it? Because we're not seeing those trends. So out of those trials that we had in our database where we really kind of showed like those 4, 5, 6, 7 bushel per acre responses with that sequential application, I spent a little bit of time and specifically looked at those trials. And I looked at the year, I looked at the variety, I looked at moisture level, I looked at disease level, I looked at fusarium head blight, I looked geographically, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and I could not find any trend that really consistently stuck out where we could say, under this set of parameters, the sequential is going to work fine. There wasn't anything that popped out, and it's still a little bit of a head scratcher in terms of where we could potentially see that this thing is coming through. So we're still going to keep looking at it because I think there's some interesting information to gain. My conclusion with this is, at the end of the day, is that especially when we look at it from a producer standpoint, doing that flag leaf treatment and then following it up with a head treatment, basically what the guy is doing is he's trying to keep his canopy as clean as possible to maximize his return on investment. There's going to be times where it pays off huge for guys, where we're going to see those 7, 8 bushel per acre responses. There's other times where it's going to be, maybe not as lucrative. But that sequential type application in terms of from a disease management standpoint, while also protecting against fusarium head blight, is going to be one of his better options. So the question I have for you guys is, at what time can you spray to protect the flag leaf? And this picture's in your book. Because especially when I start looking at this whole flag leaf versus head scenario, right? The general rule that's been blazed into my head years ago was you protect the flag, you protect the yield potential of your crop, right? And then if you protect the head, you protect the quality of the crop. So rule number 1, protect the flag, because that's where your yield's driven. So basis this picture right here, at what time do you spray to protect the flag? Here's flag leaf time right here. You're starting to see heads emerge. This one right here is where you're seeing kind of those first flowers kind of pop out, and this one over here is a fully flowered wheat head. So, and my answer to that is basically every single one of those timings, you will have the ability to protect the flag leaf. Because even if you look over here at what we would traditionally classify as head timing, we're still seeing lots of green foliage here. My experience in doing my trials is that when I go out and spray flag leaf timing over here on the left, and then when I come back to spray the heads, we're traditionally kind of in about that 8 to 10 to 11 day difference in timing, okay? So this is where it comes back to kind of agronomy 101 and scouting, 201. It's, if we're seeing lots of disease pressure on these flag leaves at this point in time, absolutely, I think we still got to be a protect the flag type scenario, which may warrant going in with a flag leaf opportunity. I think it was back in 2007, we had a major rust event blow up from the States, and we saw that guys that protected the flag at that early time really reaped the benefit of it. And that by the time we got in for head timing, the rust had already taken a toll on it. If, say, for example, if we're staring at the flag leaves, they're relatively clean, there's not much in the canopy, can we afford to wait that extra 7 to 10 days, come in at that head timing, blast the heads, give you your fusarium protection. You also get a little bit of a kickback on that flag leaf as well too. It's stuff to consider, right? And it comes back to making sure we're keeping tabs in our crop and being very aware of what's going on in the canopy. Further to that, we started to look at, we always get the question, which better, flag leaf timing or head leaf timing? And when we dove back into the database, we've got 60 hits in our database where we looked at the full rate of follicule at flag leaf timing here, and then the full rate of follicule at head timing here, and then we also have 20 hits where we looked at Preserve at the flag leaf, and then correspondingly the Preserve at the head timing, where this is all in the same trial. So basically, same product, same rate, same trial, and this is the result we saw. And we can see with follicule right here, there is, we are getting kind of like that half a bushel benefit to going to waiting and going at the head timing. We're seeing obviously a little bit more of a gap here with the Preserve. And if I separated that data out each year that we did these trials, a very consistent trend where this, especially with follicule, we're kind of in that half to 3/4 of a bushel per year on a very consistent basis, where we're seeing that head timing just perform just a little bit better than the flag leaf timing. Switching gears to look at how we're stacking up against the competition that's out there. We got a few hits in the database over the last couple of years, looking at Twin Line from BASF, and you can see the results that we're seeing there. We've also been looking at Quilt from Syngenta as well too, with regards to these trials, and you can see the results as they stack up in the trials there. And we've looked at a few other kind of flag leaf products as well too, and I'll kind of sum it up like this. We have lots of products available for that flag leaf control. So there's trizols, there's strobies, there's combination products, and all of them perform very well. They all have different little unique modes of action and how they go to work and what they do in the plant. However, when we roll up and average the yield numbers at the end of the day, we're not seeing that these products are performing statistically different than each other at that flag leaf timing. So, we are seeing kind of in that half a bushel difference on average, for example, but a half a bushel difference on a 60 plus bushel per acre wheat crop, not considered statistically different. So for the most part, we're seeing all these flag leaf products kind of pump through here. However, where we have Presero at that head timing in that trial, we are seeing a little bit of a separation where the Presero at that head timing seems to be coming through very consistently better than a lot of these flag leaf products. If you look at the head timing products, Folicure versus Presero versus Carumba, and you can see the trend that we've done there. Carumba doing a little bit better in wheat than it was in barley. But you can see we're seeing good response with Folicure, a little bit better with Carumba, a little bit better with Presero. And again, this is over the years that we've been doing this, a very consistent trend where we've seen that same step ladder in terms of performance on the yield protection. When we look at it from the quality end side, looking at percent reduction in FD, fusarium damaged kernels, or even over on the right where we start looking at the vomitoxin reduction, all products doing very well. Some differences between some of these products in terms of the fusarium reduction, but again, this trend has been very consistent in terms of a year-over-year trend that we're seeing. Looking at the grade and the bushel weight, it starts to, the waters get a little muddy there, where we're starting to see in that, in terms of how these products perform in comparison to the untreated, very similar in terms of grade performance and in terms of bushel weight performance with some of these head timing products. So some similarities between them, but there's also some unique differences between these products as well too. The other thing I wanted to look at was looking at the leaf disease genetics that we had in these trials. And this took a little bit of work, but I wanted to separate our database into what I would call weak genetics versus what we have in terms of strong genetics. So by weak genetics, these are varieties that have disease packages that are either listed as susceptible or moderately susceptible for leaf spotting diseases, the rust complex, all that sort of stuff. So we got varieties like AC Foremost, some of the winter wheats, Domain, stuff like that, Superb. Over on the strong genetic side, we're seeing varieties there that have, they're into the intermediates of the MR rating. So we're starting to see varieties like the Glens and the Carberries and Muchmores and some of the newer genetics come through. And kind of the thought process I was looking at is are we seeing differences in fungicide performance with some of the basis of the disease package that these varieties have? And you can see that there is a difference. We are seeing a little bit more response with the fungicides in terms of some of the ones that have the weaker genetics. But even with some of the stronger genetics that are out there, if we start looking at the yield performance that we're seeing with some of these fungicide products, we're still getting performance with them. And even still, if I threw out the whole return on investment thing, this very much makes it into a positive ROI. When I looked at it from a fusarium standpoint, so again, weak genetics, those are varieties that have very weak fusarium packages genetically to them. So those are varieties like CDC Go and again like Superb and stuff like that. The strong genetics again, like the Carberries, the 5602s, and it's the same type of story. We're seeing good response with the fungicides here on the weak side, but even with some of these stronger genetics, we still are seeing the response with the fungicides on that. And Andy's going to get into this maybe a little bit further in his chat here when he comes up. So my conclusions on this is, as I looked at this, there were some trends that popped out of the data that weren't a surprise. It kind of came out as expected. Weaker genetics, we get a bigger response, but we're still seeing a really good response with some of the stronger or some of the newer genetics that come out there. But basically, everything is still benefiting from that fungicide application to the point that it's, again, a very positive return on investment story standpoint from a producer. So in conclusion, if I look at it from the whole integrated pest management strategy, and again, and you'll get into this as well too, but where we start having like a better disease package with genetics coupled with a fungicide, it's actually becoming a very, very nice complementary part of an overall integrated pest management strategy. We also wanted to look at Prosero as well too at that head timing. We've traditionally looked at this timing right here as our optimal timing, where we see that first flower poking out in the wheat head. That's what we've always kind of traditional as our optimal timing. If you're going to spray, that's when we want you to. But if you need to play around with that window, we've always said go earlier. You know, put the fungicide on, put the protective barrier up, and stuff like that. However, you know, field conditions, weather conditions, you know, you get backlogged in spraying. All of a sudden, we got guys that, you know, they got a wheat head fully out right this, and they're going, is it still beneficial for me to put a fungicide at that time? So over the last couple of years, we did a few trials specifically looking at some of these different timings just to see what kind of effect we're getting. And this is the results that we saw. That optimum timing right here was very consistently giving us the best yield response. And to the point, if you start to look at each of these individual data points right here, that optimum timing was always giving us the best response. If you look at this late timing right here, it's kind of second place, but versus the early timing, but this was happening 50% of the time, that the late timing was better than the early timing, okay? The other thing was, if I look at all three of those timings in compared to all the other fungicides that we had in that trial in terms of this and that, all three of those timings were still better than, say, all of the flag leaf timings that we had in that. So even though there are some differences between what we're seeing at that head timing, it was still performing better than the commercial standards we had in that trial. And that was really interesting to see. We didn't see any real trends in terms of grade, bushel weight, fusarium reduction, vomitoxin reduction. You know, some of that's going to depend on when that pathogen hits the crop. Because we did see a couple of different trends and nothing really that we could officially hang our hat on. I think it's going to depend on when that fusarium shows up. So I think we got a little bit more of a bigger window now than what we were originally thinking. So that if we do get into a scenario where it's been raining for 2 days, 3 days, you know, and the guy's saying, I got the wheat heads fully out, it's not making sense for me to put a fungicide on. I'm thinking we're still very comfortable saying, yeah, we're still going to get an economic benefit there in terms of the yield potential and all that sort of stuff. The fusarium end of things, it's going to, like I said, it's going to depend on that, but I think we're a lot more comfortable with that bigger window now than what we were a couple years ago. And that, my friends, is all that I have for you today.